or two to bring us there. All right, we are live. All the signs are telling us that we are here alive. We still actually should be waiting for a couple of more moments for the people that will be joining us soon. And we're looking forward to see that, as a matter of fact. The sooner, the better. Now, one of the things that I want to say to everybody who has joined us here now is with two old friends talking. I might be the guy who has a barbecue show, but I have to tell you that he is the man who has the complete expertise on everything that is barbecue. In a few moments, I will give you some consummated, well-spoken details as to what is happening, why is happening, and why this is so important to me that Andy Asman, my friend, is joining us in one of those chats. So hello to everybody on Facebook, to those of you who are following us from Instagram. You're talking to a wannabe chef and a master of the religion known to most of us as barbecue. What is barbecue? What is American barbecue? What are the traditions of it? And what is the meaning of smoking? And what are the effectiveness of some of the techniques that we are taught, that we use? And in my case, quite possibly that we use wrong. For those of you who are having a particular sad day, I would encourage you to look at me because I got something going with my hair that I don't understand, but I am holding back from laughing at myself because I do look quite foolish. My handsomeness has disappeared. Why? This is what happens to me when I bring in people who are more handsome than me. Now, this fella is good. This fella is a dad, a fantastic dad. If you guys follow him on social media, you should see. To me, it's one of the most beautiful family pictures that I have. It's his family, but I claim it as mine. It's one of my morning habits together with my family to go on his pages. Andy and I, we met, I would say almost 14 years ago, together with a bunch of other chefs that ended up working with me on my show several times. Andy was easy to be friends with. At my age, you really don't make friends all that easy. You just go out there and something happens and you find somebody that you get along with. And one of the things that Andy and I got along is that he has this passion for barbecue. And my barbecue experiences until my early 40s were disastrous. I mean, I really did not have what I would call a good track record. Andy not only is good at what he does, and he will tell you more about his restaurant, his passion, but one of the things that makes him remarkable is that, hi, Denise, how you doing? One of the things that makes him remarkable is that he has a very clear ability of explaining complicated concepts, especially for me, when he came to the breakdown of the secret on how to cook the right brisket. Hey, Freddie, what's happening, man? And one of the things that I would like to say is that I would call him at the oddest hour of the day and sometime yelling in Sicilian. And he had to tell me a couple of times, Nick, I love you, but I understand one word you're saying. What happened? And I would tell him, I did this, I did that. And he would say, all right, if I was you, I would try this again. I would try that again. Hey, Kathleen, how are you? And one of the things that I love about it is that I think we became even tighter as friends. And he made me believe that actually I could do this because there is almost a codicil, an inner yellow line that takes you to the understanding of the techniques. But you need to pay attention. It's almost as complicated as baking. It has some significant rules, and they're so fixed and so precise that you need two things: talent and the ability to teach others. Because if you just do it to yourself to prove to everybody how great you are and you don't share it with the world, that's a waste. This is one of the most generous men that I know. I'm proud to call him my friend. Andy, please tell us about you, where you're calling us from, and what are you doing in your hometown today?
Okay, so I'm actually in Boston, Massachusetts. It's my backyard. Welcome, everybody. I've been working all day. I have 3 barbecue restaurants in the Boston area. Unbelievable. I know this is hard to believe. We're actually in construction for our 4th one right now. So thank you. Opening during COVID is an interesting time, but, I'm bullish about the future. I know today isn't great, but I know summer's coming eventually.
Yes.
And I mean that, literally and metaphorically. And, my day is kind of split up between building teams, something I love to do, working with people, spreading the passion of barbecue, and the other half of the day is making barbecue. So those are kind of my passions and what I do. And of course, you mentioned my children. I have twin girls, and my wife, and my mother just moved in with us. My mom. She just
Your
moved
mom is wonderful. I love your mom.
Yeah, she just moved here from Seattle. So we're excited to have her, and we're one happy COVID family right now, just dealing with this craziness and running restaurants.
Wow. Let me put you to work right away. I got a bunch of questions in here. And one of the questions that came in, it comes from a friend of ours. Her name is Rhonda. By the way, there's a bunch of you already joining. I would like to say all of your name. Amy, Rick, Janine. I hope I pronounced that correctly. How are you? So lovely to see you. From Savannah, Georgia. We have people from Texas. Listen to this. I'm going to ask him a technical question. He's going to give us an answer. Now, Rhonda is the one who asked this and said, and I'm going to read it word by word. When you cook a brisket in a smoker for 7 hours, and then you wrap it in foil and you cook it to temperature, but it ended up being tough.
Yes.
What did I do wrong? Could you kind of help us break this down into segments?
So I mean, my first question, and I think you might have had this question, I always ask, what was the weight of your brisket? Most often people will say 7 pounds, 8 pounds. To me, that means they had the flat and the flat only. So a brisket has two parts. You have the flat and the point, technically the plate and the decal. So to make a good brisket, you really need both parts. So your brisket should be low would be 10, high would be 14, 18, 20 pound brisket, because it's time and temperature. She said she cooked it to temp. We would cook ours to 202 degrees. But if you imagine it, I don't know what temperature her smoker was, but let's say she had it really hot, or if it wasn't a big enough piece, it's going to get to 202 quicker. You need that time. And what she described was what they call the Texas crutch, wrapping it in aluminum foil or wrapping it in butcher paper. I don't necessarily do that always. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Depends on what I'm doing. But it's really the time and temp. So why was it dry? My guess is she probably had a smaller piece of flat only. And then I'd have to ask her more questions to get more technical about exactly why her brisket, if that isn't the reason. But I'll guess she had a small brisket.
First and foremost, actually, that's a very technical answer. And I'm going to continue because now I have curiosity of my own. Let me say hi to a few people here. Hi, Palma, Rasmussen. What a beautiful name. Shirley, Overbot. How you doing? What I want to ask you is this. If somebody wanted as a piece to just do the flat alone, meaning that the point has already been taken out and used somewhere else, how would you approach the cooking of a whole flat? I assume a whole flat by itself, even on a big piece, we're still going to about 8, 9 pounds on the highest side. And the meat is fairly thin. There is nothing to protect it on top. So is it doable to smoke the flat alone? Are there special techniques that you need to be available and aware of? Give us some advice.
The snobby part of me says just get a whole brisket. Nobody cooks a brisket. No. So my latest cookbook, which I'm sure we'll talk about, the premise is nobody cooks a brisket for themselves. You cook it for a gathering. Barbecue is the friendliest food around. It's made for celebrations and family gatherings. And in my book, I talk a lot about different ways to use brisket besides that, slicing. If you have some leftovers, what to do with it. Okay. But to answer your question, yes, you can do it. If it was me and I was going for it, I would probably go a higher temp. So when I talk about smoking, I'm generally always talking somewhere between about 250, somewhere between 240, 260 is where I like to land. I would probably do 275, 280. You kind of want to go probably a little bit hotter to get it done. That's probably because it's going to dry out the longer it cooks. I would probably wrap it maybe with a little bit of barbecue sauce, maybe a little bit of Worcestershire, maybe a little bit of beer, and kind of try to baby it toward the end, slow it down. That's probably what I would try to do. It's tough.
Wow.
Because, let's talk about the flat. The flat is lean. When you go, the flat is when you go and get your corned beef, and they say, do you want the lean or the regular? The lean is the flat. It has less fat. What barbecue meats need that fat, and that's why people have challenges.
Well, you're given two very technical and clear things, and I'd like to summarize for those of you who are joining us right now. He's speaking about the flat, and he's describing a specific technique, which I find technologically interesting. So you push up the heat and you reduce the time, because what you want to do is to get it cooked quicker versus the longer time that without now the cap of fat on top of it is going to make the meat dry. What kind of internal temperature would you be looking for on a flat adopting this technique? And how much would you say on an 8-pounder, if it was a small packer brisket whole, you almost go 45 minutes to an hour per pound. On a brisket that's only the flat, what would you go with time-wise at 275?
It's probably going to be about 45 minutes around there. Guessing though.
Whoa!
But you're a pound.
Yeah, per
right?
pound.
But again, you know, I want to, like, I don't want people blowing me up on Instagram and when they have a 3 pound flat and it didn't work. You know, like there's certain things that you need, and that's time and temp. I mean, so you know, people always want to do brisket quick, and I don't get that, you know, or they want an easy way to do barbecue. And you know, so, true story. I will get a request from a very reputable newspaper every year. Hey, can you give us a recipe to do, you know, easy pulled pork in my Instapot? And I'm like, I don't even know what that is. That's not I mean, I can do like barbecue, I can do braised, but barbecue is slow and low and it takes time, you know, and it takes practice. That's what it is. And so it's not going to be easy. My answer to them is, sure, you give me a 500-word essay how to do your job, and I'll do your job then. It takes time. It takes practice. You got to learn this stuff. No, it's fun practice. It's tasty practice.
No, but I have to say that do you remember how I was like a child when I called you the first time that I did that light barbecue, that it came out right. It was such a sense of joy that it tasted so good. I'm sure that I became only better after that, but the ability to understand that inside line, what the action and reaction of things and how they affect each other, becoming part of the technicality, it's something that is extremely important for people to understand, because anybody can throw out this temperature, this long, and then it's like people who get medicines from the doctor and then they decide, you know, today I feel good. I think I'll take half of this pill. Yeah. Tomorrow I'll go 1.5, and then the average remains the same. This type of reasoning does not work. There's a certain amount of mathematician employment about it, but it all comes down to the touch. A true pit master comes to understand what things are, at what time they do it, just by the way they lift it up. For those of you that don't know it, I just learned for the first time about this 80-year-old woman. I was watching the show on Netflix, Chef's Table. That woman, I mean, I just wanted to reach through the screen and hug her. I mean, what a personality, what a powerful life, and what a great sense of love that she has to that. And she basically said, I don't know, what are you asking me? I just touch them, and I know that they need this. And I seen your work before, and you pretty much on that automatic sense, I guess, to the lesser skill like me will come into time. But that is such an admirable trait to have that.
But you have the same thing with pasta. You know, like I'm not great at making pasta, but guys like you who've made it all your lives, you know the feeling. Oh, this might need a little more water. It needs a little less water. It needs whatever it needs. You know, it needs more kneading, right? It's that texture. It's that thing. But I don't want to scare people away from trying barbecue, you know, or trying pasta. It is fun, tasty practice, and even okay barbecue is still great barbecue in my book.
Well, let's talk about something that a lot of people have a lot of opinions, and you have competed successfully nationwide for many, many years, won some major awards.
Yeah.
But there is a difference between a backyard barbecue, what people can buy in your shops, your restaurants, and what people need to do for competition. And I think of competition, there are some rules that are not necessarily the best of rules, in my opinion. But that's the mandate. That's what the judges train and they require. So let me ask you this. Do you find yourself, when you cook for the restaurant, to adopt this codicil of difficult rules? And this is, by the way, from Mary that brought it in. Does he cook competition barbecue at this restaurant, or is it more like a passionate man that cooks for his friends? So I'm setting you up with a question for what it is, making a difference between what competition is.
It's a great question. And we'll start by competition barbecue. The way I like to talk about competition barbecue, it's like the Lance Armstrong of food. It's jacked full of stuff, needled full of stuff. Competition barbecue. Look, we got first place in Kansas City brisket, 510 teams, first place. And I want to be clear, I'm not the lead pitmaster on our team. A guy named Chris Hart. He is my best friend, and he is our lead guy. I'm just, you know, I'm washing dishes.
He's
But
the only one of the crew I've ever met. I would love to meet him. He's fantastic
he's
from the
awesome.
videos that I've seen of you guys working together.
Anyway, so competition barbecue, they're taking one bite. 6 judges are taking one bite. And for it to be the best, it's mind-boggling how anything is the best out of 510 teams. It has got to blow them away. So it is just so powerful and packed full of flavors that you really can't eat it. You really can't. You know what it is? It's like a race car. You can drive a race car, but you can't really take a race car on the street. So to take that analogy a little farther, when I'm cooking at home, when I'm cooking, in my backyard, which I'm in now, when I'm cooking at the restaurants, I am taking some of those tricks that I know from driving the race car, and use them, but on the street, if that makes sense. So I'm cooking more for the masses instead of 6 finicky judges, and I'm not using a lot of the stuff that we would use in competition barbecue. But a lot of the same flavors, like a race car. A lot of the flavors I developed and a lot of the techniques I've developed, I've used them in my restaurants. And that is why for the last 2 years, we've gotten Best Barbecue Boston.
I'm sorry, the last part did not come through for me. Would
Okay.
you mind repeating it once again? Please say it.
No,
say it because you deserve it.
Well, no, we awarded Boston's Best Barbecue 2 years in a row. We're very proud of that. I want to be clear. That's not just me. That is my team. We have an awesome group of people that work together, and it's not me that scores the touchdown. It's all of us.
By the way, for those of you that are discovering Andy for the first time, he's open. He publishes his thoughts, his ideas. You'll get to meet his girls, his wife. It's a beautiful family. But I think that social media, especially during these times, even through the small exercise that we're doing right now. Hey, Bob Nicomini, come stai? One of the things that I want to say is that there is a certain beauty to look at somebody that you admire and see that the other side of life, that the life that happens after the 1 second of the posting, has this depth to it. And I think that one of the most beautiful things that you said is barbecue is first and foremost a celebration. When we're discussing the brisket before, what would you want to do it quick? Just hanging around the smoker with your friends, sharing beers, telling stories, having the little snacks that go around there beforehand. And I'm not talking about a competition. I'm talking about a moment at the house, even if they come and join you for the last 3 or 4 hours. Those are convivial moments that you cannot even buy if you had money. Stuff like that you don't buy at the supermarket. And that's, I think, that what people that love barbecue love the food and the taste of it as much as the moment with it. So if you don't know how to barbecue and you live in the Boston area, this guy can take care of you. And he does it quite well.
Come on by.
But he is willing to give us some more information. So from another one of our fans, Steve, is asking about the making of ribs, specifically baby back ribs and St. Louis ribs. 2 different cuts, St. Louis being closer to the tummy, therefore having a lot more striations of fat and density of meat. The baby back being on the tail end, being smaller. I, for example, have still to this very day, I get some insulting defeats from baby back that if they're not babied properly, and I try to push them past the 4 hours, usually I cook them at 225, 240, I try to be at it. And I noticed that if I don't baby them as the baby back ribs only, the last part of the rib where they taper down super small, it becomes unedible. It's like those are sacrificial lambs that I just cut and move on, and I only eat it from the 3rd rib in. But still, it pisses me off. So I'm asking you, how should I be more attentive in handling baby back ribs to avoid this licking of this hot smoke on the most smaller, volumetrically speaking, part of the rib itself that also does not have that much meat to it?
Yeah, I mean, I'd ask you what kind of smoker you're using. If you're using
it's a Traeger pellet.
Okay.
And that's the beginner model that I have.
So you want to find out where your hot spots are. And because there's going to be hot spots in there. I know the Traegers come from the smokes from the bottom, but there's probably going to be a hot spot, and I would try to make sure my smaller parts that I want to cook less are farther away from that hot spot.
I never thought about it that way. I assumed there was a uniform flow of smoke, but it's not.
No. So that's what it is. But again, like the problem, and I love baby backs. I'm a St. Louis guy though. That's my choice for ribs. But When there is something that's uneven or less smaller, it's going to cook differently. I mean, that's the reality of it, right? So that's why, you know, a tip of a brisket might be a little more dry than the inner parts of it. You know, that's just going to naturally happen. So it's not necessarily. I think the sacrificial lamb is fine. Maybe those are the ones that you're cutting off and you're trying, you know, and you kind of get to know them, and you know the other ones are good.
Well, I prefer the flavor of St. Louis. My wife, however, does not, and
So
that's a big issue.
You prefer the flavor.
Yeah, the St. Louis ribs. I think that there are more meat to it. It's more
Yeah.
fun for me to eat it.
Yeah.
The baby back has got bite, boom, gone. What is a piece of? And then if I slightly overcook him, the meat starts to fall off, and everybody gets totally excited in my family and friends. But the problem for me is that I think I failed because I've overcooked it so much. I would like to have it with a bite left on it.
Yeah.
And then I understand that really doesn't mean squat. It really is. If people are smiling, if they're drinking, if they're telling stories, that is the best part.
Sure.
But I know for a fact I will not be able to make a living off of it or to give people advice on how to make the perfect ribs because I'm still learning the action and reaction of things. So let me ask you this. Do you think that 240 is too high of a heat for the baby back ribs in a smoker? Or would you propose? Are you a proposer of the 220, 225 rule for that thing? People get mathematically attached to those things.
People are nuts. 250. Just do 250.
I'm the president.
Just go 250. You're going to be so much better. And you know, just if your goal is 250, 240 to 260 is kind of where you're going to go. I want to give a shout out or mention Guru's Barbecue Guru. I think it's barbecueguru.com. That's bbqguru.com. For those of you that don't have a Traeger, if you use a big green egg like I do right there, if you use a Weber Smoky Mountain, which is a really great smoker, and they work for Langs and all different stuff. It's a contraption you can attach to your fire pit that blows on your smoker and maintains a temperature. They are phenomenal. So
would you repeat the name of that one again, please?
It's I believe it's bbqguru.com.
Okay.
And so these are awesome pieces of equipment. They're not cheap, and you can get wireless ones. I've never used the wireless ones, but basically you put a probe in it attaches to your fire. They have different attachments, so it attaches to where your fire is, and then you have a probe in your smoker, and it knows the difference between heating up your smoker and the difference between that and when you're just going in to look at it. And so it slowly blows on your fire, so you could smoke overnight and you don't have to be there every minute. I really want to encourage people to barbecue more, even though I want you to come to my restaurant. I'd love you to keep cooking barbecue. It's such a passion of mine, and this will help you and not have to stand there, and you know, it'll help you maintain that. So the most important thing for barbecue is not your rub. It's not your sauce. It is consistent temperature. You've all heard, if you're looking, you ain't cooking. But there's a meaning to that. It's not just like, it's like you need a consistent temperature. That's what the Traeger does pretty good, is it holds a consistent temperature. That's the most important thing. Smokers are not like your oven. The Traeger more is, but most of them are not. Whereas when you get into your oven, you look at your stuff and you close and your oven says, oh, I'm not the right temperature. I need to be at the right temperature. Your smoker doesn't do that. You are the brain of the smoker. There is no thing, but the Guru can become the brain of your smoker.
Well, I have to say that I would like to encourage people to clean their smokers. I see that you have your own story. I'll start with my story. So I've been using the Traeger now. When I got it, must have been at least 3 months. So basically, almost using it every day. I was on a personal discovery, and there was the time that I was calling you almost every other day or sending you pictures of it. And you were guiding me through because I could not believe that even with the smoker on hand, instead of the adaptation I made to my barbecue, that I would fail as I did. And never paid attention to the fact that in spite of the fact that the smokers are designed, at least in this model, to leak down the fat, some of the fat goes underneath the plate and accumulates down at the very bottom of the barrel where the wood is fed through it, even though it's on the outside of the wall. I didn't even think about the fact that the smoke turns everything black and the bottom of the smoker is black. So I assumed that there was the texture of it. I decided at one point to follow a recipe for something that was doing grilling. One thing that I don't quite understand, how a smoker can also move to a grilling by increasing the heat to 475. And to make it more interesting, I put a bunch of thick cut artisanal bacon that I got from this farmer right on the smoker because I wanted to give it its grill marks. I walked into the kitchen, I walked back, and there was a flame that had engulfed my smoker that was at least 6 feet taller than me. And I was thinking, oh my God, how am I going to explain this to anybody? I'm not going to tell that I'm a chef and I did this. Thank God that I was smart and I turned off the smoker by basically unplugging it. Therefore, the smoke was no longer blown in from the vent on the inside. And I did not open the thing to expose it to air to give it more oxygen to come in, and I let it calm down. The next day, I was so mad. I assumed there was an error in design. And I swear, I called, and I think I spoke half of Sicilian. And trust me, when Sicilians get mad, we speak with a very thick dialect, and we weave insults in Sicilians inside a conversation. This must have been the nicest person I've ever met. He kind of broke me through it. It says, look, Mr. Stellino, I have to tell you, but you don't know this, but the bottom of your thing, for all the stuff that you cooked and you never cleaned it, there must be at least 2 inches of fat in there. Says, well, it's impossible. It's me with my iPhone. I go outside, I open the trigger, I do everything that he says. I take my finger, I put it in, and suddenly I feel my finger that goes almost this far into this fat that it's disgusting, it's hardened on the outside. So for all of you that think that the machine is something that you never need to clean because you just push a button, I would like to encourage you to make it at least a weekly routine if you cook as much as I do, because that type of experience should not happen to you. I was very lucky that nothing caught on fire and nobody was there with a photograph to actually take a picture of it. That would have been the end of my career as a barbecue. I still have one shot by telling people I'm his friends, and he's still teaching me throughout. Have you ever had big accidents? Can you share anything that might have happened to you in the past when you said, oh my God, what's going on here?
Not for me. I've seen it though. I saw some people put a hog on a barrel cooker one time. And so when you see black smoke coming out of your smoker, that's time to go home, basically, or to stop. And they had black smoke coming out of it. And then, which you were smart enough not to do, they decided to open it up because they wanted to, like, I don't know, put the fire out. But the oxygen rush made a fireball just fly out of it.
Oh my God.
It was impressive. So, you want to, I mean, how you use your smoker. I generally, so besides, I have a Big Green Egg, which I use as a smoker and grilling. But generally, smokers are smokers, grills are grills. And if you're using them as both, you definitely want to make sure, even a smoker, you want to make sure if there's a place where fat can accumulate, you want to clean that out now and then. You don't need to do it all the time. But, it's not every day. And I want to be clear, you don't need to like scrub your smoker. You want that kind of smoky buildup in there. Just the fat you want.
The fat
at the restaurants where, this is a daily thing. We're cooking, I think tonight we're cooking 10 briskets and 14 pork butts. So yeah, no, we smoke. I mean, not much now. That's not much for us normally. We just so we're clear, I sold 140,000 pounds of brisket last year.
Oh my God. Well, kudos to you because you make it taste. I'm actually having an incredible time with my hair that refuses to take order. Look at this. I got the perfect layout now.
There you go.
But I want for people to understand that the thing that makes you quite remarkable in my eyes as well is the fact that when everybody says, that's it, it's the end of it, let me walk away, the world has changed, I'll do something else. You stuck with it all the way through. I remember I forget the name of the lady, the masterful pastry chef that you guys make pop-ups with your trucks.
Oh, Joanne, yeah.
I am thinking this is a guy who stands and stinks. He tries to find a different way of doing it. He loves what's happening. Is there to find solutions. It's that spirit that makes it in a restaurant business. It's not somebody who lays down and says, oh, poor me. Oh, what happened? Let me lament. Lament what? This is the kind of temperament that you want to see in life. This is what happens. Let's figure out a way of doing it. So I find that so endearing that as you're talking, it says, by the way, this is not a big amount for me, but it's big amount given the fact that the business is reduced. Yeah. And you have set up an incredible delivery system, people coming up. But I would like for you to tell us a little bit about your books, if you don't mind, because I have each one of you. You sent them to me, and I'm most thankful. I go to them as my own personal Bible. But I want for my friends that they're listening to us to hear about what you got going. Please share that with us.
So, I mean, because I can see Rick just bought this book right here. So this, well, there we go. All right. This is Backyard Barbecue. This is my most recent book. And this is really about, I mean, the premise is that nobody cooks a brisket for themselves. When you cook a brisket, you know, barbecue is the friendliest food. There is an interesting thing. If I was to give a little bit of advice to anybody. So this book is all about eating together in groups and friends and family and large gatherings. Try not to release a book about large gatherings right before COVID. That's probably not the best thing to do. What did Yogi Berra said? If not for bad luck, I'd have no luck at all. I'm
sorry, but you delivered like such a funny joke, even though it's not that funny. I apologize, but you were funny.
It is what it is. But so in this book, and I want to be clear, we made it so I want people to cook barbecue at home. I want them to experience what I experienced. So I tried to make it not so difficult that there's going to be, I guarantee if you make the bare bones barbecue sauce in here, you're not going to buy barbecue sauce anymore. You know, it's so simple. It's not crazy ingredients. You will love it. The smoky hot barbecue sauce in here, that's what you like, that Kansas City molasses stuff, you're going to love it. And it's so easy. So, I mean, I love writing books. That book is phenomenal. Awesome drinks, awesome beverages. And then this one, which is our best-selling book, there we go, Pitmaster. And what's great about this is we talk about all different regions in the book. I wrote that with Chris Hart, who's our team captain of our barbecue team. A lot of great guest pitmasters in there. Jamie Greer from Texas is in it. It is, we really looked at like Sam Jones from North Carolina. He's in it. So we looked at each different region, talked about some of our favorite regions, not all of them. I didn't forget about you, Georgia. But, there's all different great stuff in there. And, if you want to cook barbecue, can't go wrong.
Well, I can say this. I often find myself going back to the book because, like everybody, we really don't memorize every single recipe inside a book. What happens is we fall in love with one or two of those, maybe three, maybe five, whatever the case might be. But the book, very few people do it. But to me, it's become quite often, many times, going at it. I then make some small changes on my own, not because I really know what I'm doing, but because I have to try the experimentation. It's something that's within us. But let's talk about different type of meats. For example, the pork butt and the smoking of the pork butt. Yeah. I watch these shows on TV about competitive barbecue. I don't know how real they are or they're not. And I refuse to believe that the chefs are so aggressive. I'm thinking, I already got a temper. If I get somebody like that in front of me, talking to me like that, I put him through the wall. And I'm thinking, this cannot be the way they talk to each other. Or is it really like that?
Well, I'm a judge on a show called Fire Masters, and it's on the Cooking Channel and Canadian Food Network. It's all about the food. And if you have a chance to watch it, it's about food. There's no arguments or fights. It's about delicious, well-cooked food and no cooking with gummy bears kind of stuff. No, reality TV isn't real. I mean, that's my opinion. It's
important for me that people understand this because, as a producer for television, I understand what makes good television.
Yeah.
And the great thing that works for me is that I'm my own boss. I produce the show, my company distributes it through American Public Television. And it's a relationship now that's lasted for the past 20 years, 27 years at a TV show. And you can't be going around talking to people like they're subhuman. So when I see a screamer like that, I'm thinking, how can this person? And then I'm thinking, there must be one of these 25-year-old producers who just graduated from film school that goes there and says, listen, when he turns around, just insult him. It's going to make great television. I can already see that happening, and it ruins my connection to the food. But let's go back to the question.
But I would say those shows aren't about food.
No, they're not.
But Top Chef I like, and Top Chef seems to be more focused on food and personality, but food. And that's what you and I are passionate about. That's why those shows aren't for us.
Andy, you and I went out for hours that one night when we had dinner together, talking about how we make that sauce. Yeah. You were so generous to me in sharing with me and every other chef that was with us at the table. I can only say I felt like I was amongst friends, even though this is the first time that I met these people.
Yeah,
So when I
that was
see
fun.
this crap on TV, I'm thinking, what kind of name are they giving us? Like, if you don't fight with people, you're not good. Trust me, all of us on a daily basis, we fight for what we have. Maintaining these restaurants under this crisis is not to be led by a man who doesn't have character. And the most beautiful thing that you're looking ahead already for a new one that you're building. That is the kind of American dream that I would like for people to remember when you go to bed at night. On top of it, the food that you make. And here I go back with my question.
Yes,
Prepare yourself because
I'm
it's
ready.
difficult. This question is horrible. Pork butt. What is the way to eat this thing? Because when I made it myself, I ended up that this thing basically falls apart. Is it just for sandwich and pull, or did I overcook that darn thing?
No, you want to cook it. So we do bone-in pork butts, and let's do a fun fact. Why is it called a pork butt? How about that?
Please.
So it's called a Boston butt, right? That's what they call it, a Boston butt. So back in the day, you used to be butchering in every region of America. No longer. Now it's mainly butchering in the where it's grown. So they used to, and Boston was known for a certain type of butchering, and that include using the copa, which is the back right there. What we call in barbecue competitions the money muscle. You can see it has striation. It's the extension of the loin. So it was a type of cut that was the Boston cut that became very popular. Then, after it was cut, it was shipped in barrels that were called butts, and so it was called a pork butt. When you cook it, I cook it to about 202. So I want it falling apart. We cook it bone in. I want to be able to pull that bone out without just pull it right out. And then I like to shred it, but not too far. I want to keep big chunks of bark and everything, and a little bit of sauce, whether you're in North Carolina, red sauce, table sauce, vinegar sauce, or you're more South Carolina mustard sauce, a little bit of sauce on a bun. That's how you eat it, or without bun. I mean, so yeah, pulled. When you're talking about it, you're talking about barbecue. You're talking about pulled pork. So yes, it is shredded. If that answers your question.
Well, thank you, because I didn't know if I messed it up completely. There are some things that are not typical here in California where I live, which is not, I only know it because I either read about it or I've seen it on other TV shows. Yeah. And I've always been curious. The only time that I had pulled pork was when I visited the Carolinas. And I was surprised when the sandwich arrived. It was a piece of bread, bunch of meat, and no barbecue sauce.
Yeah, they put vinegar sauce on it. Generally.
But the thing is that's the tradition there.
Yeah.
I mean, just because it's not what I expected, it doesn't make me right. It makes them wrong. Another thing that I tried was sweet tea. Mamma mia, sweet tea. The thing was like a dessert made into liquid. I never had tea like that. I mean, my own tongue came out and smacked me in the face. It's, what are you doing to me? Trying to kill me?
I get the 50-50, half sweet tea, half regular. That's far better.
I need to learn because I ordered it assuming that it would be what it was. But I also came to understand on how on a singular theme, there are all these regional variations that sometimes even within the same state from town to town does change. But I'm going to tell you a story now that's going to make you laugh. It deals with barbecue. This is taking me 27 years ago, my very first book tour, my first show, my first book tour, and we end up in Houston. The driver is taking me back to the airport. There's few hours before my plane has to leave to take me back to Los Angeles. We've done a book signing where exactly 10 people showed up. And to me, was the most exciting thing. It was my first book signing. Cannot believe that people actually knew who I was. I was hugging everybody. I mean, I was having a fantastic time. So the driver says, Mr. Stellino, when I arrived to the airport early, I says, listen, on our way to the airport, is there a place we could go? I understand Texas is big on barbecue. Says, oh yeah, but it's not on the road. It's one of the side roads, but we can still make it in time. Let's go. He takes me there. And what I notice is this huge, big semis that are basically lined out outside of the restaurant. I'm thinking in Italy, when you see semis, it means that it's got to be good food, a good price, because guys that basically make the living, carrying this merchandise across this great country of ours, only have a limited budget and they're really particular about the taste of their food. I get inside. The place is a small joint. All the tables inside are taken. It's still cool enough that we can sit outside. I figure, I don't know when I'm going to come back to Houston. And so I look at the menu and I order the whole left side of the menu. So the guy looks at me again and says, "Excuse me?" I say, "Yeah, I'll have the whole left side on the menu." And he laughs at me. And I go, "Listen, I don't know if I'm going to come back. I want to try it all, and I don't want to make the wrong choice. It's possible." I said, "Yeah, sure. Go outside. We'll bring it to you." So I go outside, and the food starts to arrive. And I understand that I made a significant mistake in ordering a whole side of a menu, because this thing is not just a piece of meat. It comes with the pickles. It comes with the potatoes. It comes with the beans. Time over, time over, time over. I mean, basically, this is a long picnic table completely covered by food. I'm thinking, Mamma mia. And I'm thinking, this is incredible. And I start biting, tasting everything. And I find myself assaulted by this variation of flavors of this Texas barbecue, which has nothing at all to do with the barbecue that I was getting from the chain down here in Los Angeles, which I think is like almost like a toy store compared to what I was getting there. All of a sudden, the whole food in front of me is darkened by a dark shadow. And I don't know what's happening. And I turn around and I'm looking into the sun, but I realize that this guy is twice the size of me. And he's got one of those hats. I think they call them gallon hats. I mean, they're really big. I mean, the guy is big to begin with. Plus, he's got a hat that gives him another 4 feet. I'm thinking, what did I do wrong? I'm looking around and says, "Hello?" He says, "Well, I want to ask you one thing, boy. Did you order all this food here?" I go, "Yeah." He says, "Boy, you're going to get fat. You're going to make me rich. You're welcome here anytime you want, boy."
That's a great story.
And this, I guess, is really how I was injected into this wonderful adventure that is barbecue. Let's talk about something else. Fish.
Yeah.
Fish for long smoking, I don't think is anything appropriate that you would want to do, but maybe it's a misconception that I have. If we're talking about fish, what interesting experiments have you done?
So, and again, in my book, Backyard Barbecue, I was going to try to grab it. This book right here, Backyard Barbecue, because it's based on a lot of the stuff we do in the restaurant, we do a fair amount of fish. Not, we do it more for our catering and on our events. So salmon, cod, shrimp, oysters, all that stuff can be done in the barbecue. So, but what we love about fish is that it's lean, right? It's a fantastic protein. Conversely, barbecue is not lean, right? Briskets, the butts, the ribs. So we need to address that issue. So what we've developed is brines. So a salinic, a little bit of salt, maybe a little bit of sugar, seasonings, depending on what I'm doing. There's a ratio, and we have all sorts of recipes for this. So like we do a whole salmon fillet that I'll soak in a brine for about 2 hours. I'm not trying to change the flavor. What I'm trying to do is use the salt to help it absorb and like kind of stay moist. It's not salty, so I don't want you to worry about that. And then you could smoke it short times though. Shrimp can be done in 10 minutes, depending on your smoker. Salmon fillet, 30, 40 minutes. Lightly kissed with smoke. I love to use alder, but you can use different types of smoke. Lightly kissed with smoke. It's tender, it's juicy, it's perfect. You do need to watch it though, because that's your tricky part, is where there's more of a wiggle room on a long cook. On a short cook, there's not a big window. So you're going to kind of really, I use something called a polder, Polder. It's a remote thermometer. You can get wireless ones also that will go to your phone. So you're watching your temperature. You know, what's important is you're cooking it to about 130, 140 degrees max for your fish, your seafood. But yeah, totally doable. Seafood's great on the smoker. Absolutely.
Wow. You know what? I was expecting for you to say no, that cannot be done. And I never thought of the marinade on something as lean as the fish, like the salmon. I mean, that's so the temperature, it's in the 135, 140 that you want to see on the protein.
No,
but the smoke
yeah.
Or do you cook it at 140 just using the smoking part of it?
I'm cooking at about 225, 250. I am.
Wow. You know, I'm going to try that. Try that. After we finish, you got to send me the recipe, because this is to me like super cool idea. I mean, I love that idea.
Yeah. And what's cool about this is contrary to what I said before, is here you can just cook 2 little fillets, just enough for you and a family member, right? That's it. So you don't need to cook a huge brisket. You could cook just some shrimp. You could cook just some, because this is not about breaking down the proteins here. That's what we're doing. We're breaking down the meats in those long cooks. In the fish, we absolutely don't want to do that. We want to maintain that beautiful texture and taste. We're just trying to cook it a different way, right? And we're not cooking it in an oven or in a pan. Now we're cooking in a smoker. You're not going to get a sear. That's not going to happen. But you don't want that. You just want this beautiful salmon. At least I do. One of my favorite dishes is we do a smoked cod dip with, or maybe it's hake, one of those two, with an Asiago cracker. Phenomenal.
Get out of here.
Yeah, I'm going to send you that recipe. I haven't sent you this book. I'm so embarrassed.
Send me the book, darling. What are we talking about? But those are fantastic ideas.
Yeah.
How do you come up with this stuff? I would have never put these two things together.
You know how chefs do. It's just,
that is awesome.
You just, like, for me, I'm so fortunate to have a job that is about fantasy, that I get to fantasize about food. I'm like, oh, I want to do this. How do I do it? And a lot of times, and we've done this, it's you sit there and go, what if I do this? And then what if I do that? And your friends talk and you chat and you kind of work it through and you come up with the best thing possible. And sometimes it takes practice, but the good news for everybody is I've done the practice for you. Buy the book. You're going to have the recipes. They're good.
No, that part of it, to everybody who's listening, I would not. I posted on my Facebook page a whole video about cleaning the the meat, because the first time that I bought a whole packer brisket, I didn't take any of the fat out, and I cooked it with it, assuming that it would render. Well, there's fat that renders, and I learned that the hard way, and there is fat that really does not render, and it becomes this gooey mess that you got to scrape out. Like, it was one of the worst experiences I've ever had. But the ability for people to understand on the inside line on how to take a piece of meat and give this piece of meat a life that is beyond the life itself of the protein, but a life that is connected with flavor. And what I find remarkable about you, Andy, is that even when thrown, shrimp in the end is one of the leanest things that we could possibly imagine. The fat content is almost non-existent, except for some of the fishes that come out of Africa. But it's a whole different story. The beautiful thing about it is that you're getting your idea how to smoke it, give it the lick of flavor, and still maintain the predominant flavor and tenderness and juiciness that the protein does have. And you do it without having to manage it, flip it, right, left. Is this brine concept idea that you bring forth that I think is brilliant, because it can be adapted to a lot of things.
Sure.
And in your book, you share these ideas openly with people. Aren't you afraid that somebody's better than you is going to steal from you?
They can have it. I got more. I got more ideas. You can have more. But I first of all, I thought that Enrica loves my restaurants. Thank you very much. But I wanted to mention, someone asked about chicken and cooking chicken, and is it safe? When we see problems with food, we are seeing source problems mainly. You don't hear about people getting sick from how they cook it as much, but that is a possibility. With poultry, cook it to 165, or you can even do 160. It will carry over and you'll be fine, as long as you're buying good ingredients. That's what's most important to me. We know every vendor, we know every farm, we know where our stuff comes from. If you're buying from a reputable store and a reputable product, you'll be fine with your chicken, cooking it on.
I envision a world, and I hope that it will come to us. And I think that this crisis that we're having with COVID right now is doing it for us. With the small farmers, the small growers, both for meat, fish, will find a way to connect directly with the consumer, people like me, on some kind of a subscription service so we can get fresh delivery of things. Because I find myself, even when I go to the best of stores, that they try the very best, that the sourcing of some time of the quality is not all that good. And it does bother me to pay that kind of money. Now, I can afford to pay that kind of money, but the problem is you feel like this poor thing died twice. The first time when they butchered it, the second time when they put it in the window. And I'm thinking, how can you sell stuff like this? And it's so bad to look at. One of the advantages of having somebody with a conscience like you is that you spend an enormous amount of time going to the people that provide you with your proteins, that provide you with all of the stuff that you cook, and see how they raise it, see the personality, see the animals, because a happy animal makes a much better meal that are an unhappy, stressed animal. And there is a whole thing to talk about that, but we'll not do it today. Those are things that I've not spoken of since my farming days in my family when they were trying to make. Do you know that I'm one generation away from being a farmer? My father was the first one that left the farm. My grandfather tried to pull us both in, me and my dad. I was the one that didn't want anything to do with it. And a lot of people think that I come from some kind of a family of highest nobility just because I talk complicated as I do. Listen, I'm a farmer. I am a product of farmers. And I will say this, I am so happy that I come from that part of the world. Why? I think the farming, like cooking, is one of the things that puts you in connection with the land. And I will say a story about my dad who came to visit me when me and my wife had our first one-bedroom apartment. It was a tiny little thing. And Dad says, you need to plant some veggies in here. I said, Dad, who does in America? We go to the store, we go to the supermarket. He says, no, you got this thing. You got to make a garden. And I said, okay, fine. I'll buy some ground. I'll put it in. The two of us will do it together. It will be fun. He says, oh, ground? You got to go and you got to find this particular kind of poop. He basically sent me to every different farm on the outside of Los Angeles to find 16-pound of goat poop. And it had to be goat. It cannot be anything else. I said, Dad, why don't we go with the horses? No. They ruined the skin on the tomatoes. Anyway, it was an opportunity for me to bond with my dad, an adventure that I will not tell you, showing up at people's farms and basically asking them to buy the poop. This alone, it's absurd. However, he mixed it with the mulch that he created over a period of the 3 weeks that he was with us. And then once he prepared the ground, he laid it down and he planted the plants. Then he had to go back to Sicily. We had plants of basil that was 6 feet tall, as tall as me. It was the most astonishing. And I'm thinking all these years that I always made fun of my dad, that I think he was crazy in his head for doing all those things. He was a scientist. The same way you are a scientist about your barbecue. And how stupid it was of me in order to have acquired that knowledge. And unfortunately, it was never one of the subjects that we share with each other. But I became fully aware at that moment of the greatness that was him. And to this very day, it remains for me one of those moments where I thought, being modern, being educated was against my best interest and not at all one of the things that advantaged me in any way. So that's why I am so enthused and enthusiastic when you reveal those things. Listen, if people want to connect with you digitally, do you have a website they can go to? Do you have a product page that can come to it? Tell us about it.
I mean, Instagram is always great if you have any questions. At Andy Husbands, easily found. Facebook, you can find me. Twitter. Not super active on Twitter. And then the smokeshopbbq.com, the smokeshopbbq.com. You can find the restaurant, and we have all sorts of information there about the restaurants. You can find me on Amazon. I have 6 cookbooks out. I'm trying to keep up with Nick. I know he's got like 80 cookbooks out, but I'm trying. I did want to jump back though and just mention about sourcing. You can get, I know lots of people, and we have BJ's out here, Costco, Sam's Club. You can get good meats there. So I don't want to say you need to go to some fancy place. So you can get great meats there. A lot of teams will get their briskets from there for competition. On the flip side, if you're looking for some really good meats, check out Snake River Farms. Snake River Farms, you can find them online. They'll ship anywhere. If you're looking for like American Wagyu, like we'll get our competition briskets there. They'll cost me $180, but they are insane, and their meats are really good. So it just depends on what you want to do. But I don't want to say you only need to go fancy. You only need to spend a lot of money. You can get good quality stuff at Safeway or other stores as well, Whole Foods and everything in between.
Andy, I would like to thank you for one gift that you gave me today. As I'm standing here looking outside, the view of the smoke over the valley is taking my breath away. I can now go outside and breathe. The whole Southern California, Northern California, and Oregon are overtaken by what I think is a disaster of biblical proportions. You have kept me smiling for a whole hour. And for a moment, in spite of the evidence of what I see in front of me, I was a greatest joy that I could possibly have had to speak with an old friend, to feel the kind of encouragement, to hear the positivity that you have about the present, the willingness of what you're willing to do into the future. I only wish you nothing but the greatest success in everything. If at any time I can ever be of help, please come to me, because you're one of those national treasures that need to be preserved. Not only you create great food, but you bring a great atmosphere around you. And I would like for all the young men out there that are wondering what it's like to be a great dad to check his page, and you will see what that is all about. And Andy, thank you for so many years ago for choosing me as one of your friends. I feel very honored by it.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.